Hey everybody, welcome back. Woodley here. It's great to have you today. I'm going to do a 100-hour review on our Cummins air-cooled 20 kilowatt backup home generator. We have been living in our house for 1.5 years, and during that time we've had somewhere between 8 to 10 power outages. The longest was a 40-hour power outage. And we've been thankful to have it, although it hasn't been in operation for all of the outages that we've had. So I want to go through the capacity of it. I want to talk to you about some of the quirks, some of the things that you can do to avoid problems, and hopefully provide information with you if you're making a decision about that or considering um, getting a home backup generator for yourself. Now, where we live, there's almost nobody has a Cummins home generator. They're primarily commercial generators. Generac has probably 99% of the standby backup generators. At our church, we have a 24 kilowatt Generac generator that's run really well for us there. I don't have anything at stake in this. I don't have anything from Cummins. I'm not sponsored in any way, shape, or form. This is just my experience and my opinion about it. So the first thing is the capacity of this is very significant for a home backup needs. We essentially have a duplex. With our house, my in-laws live on the ground floor. So we have 2 refrigerators, we have 2 freezers, we have 2 heat pumps, we have a well pump, dryer, dishwasher, and it can pretty much run all of those appliances without any issue. Things can go on like, we don't really have any concern about what is happening with those when we're running the generator. When we had the power outage, one of our heat pumps in the wintertime has a propane backup with it. We have a Train heat pump that runs our ground floor and first floor, and then we have a Mitsubishi Hyperheat that runs our second floor in that. So in the wintertime, when we've had power outages, what we do on the Train is we put it in emergency mode, and so that runs off only propane. It kind of shuts the heat pump down. It's only running the air handler in that. But this 20 kilowatt unit is able to run all of those things without any issue. And the unit that we have has an automatic transfer switch for 200 amp, and it also has the cold start package with it, which has a little bit of a heater that goes with the battery and the oil pan, I think. So from the capacity side of it, we've been really happy with this. So we have had some occasional quirks with it. One of the things that's happened is sometimes you have an AC fault, which is the error code that comes up. And that can be for a variety of reasons. When you read in the manual, it's not always clear. When we've had longer outages and I've shut it off to do an oil check on it, uh, when I restart it manually, what happens is the first time it starts up, it ends up shutting off right away, and it trips the circuit breakers, all of our bathroom circuit breakers, which are the GFCI breakers. They trip. I don't go in and change anything. I just manually start it again. It gets running, and then I go in and flip the breakers. So something about that load and that connection when I'm doing that manual start seems to trip it in that way. When it's doing an automatic start, it's never given me an issue with an automatic start. Um, there also have been a few other random times where it's had an AC fault shut off in the middle of an operation. Happened more early on with us. My suspicion related to that is it seemed like our propane tank was a little bit lower at the time. Not super low, but a little bit lower. And I'm wondering if it has something to do possibly with the propane tank being lower and possibly the pressure that's on there. I don't know. It has a dedicated regulator off of it. We have a 500-gallon propane tank that feeds into our unit, and then it feeds separately into the generator, into our house, and separately into the generator. In the house, it runs our hot water and it runs the kind of backup heat source that we have, and then it runs to the generator. Separate regulators. I'm not sure if that's the issue, but I think that ideally, if you can in that situation, the ideal thing would be to have a dedicated propane tank for it. But again, we've made it work related to that. There has been one other issue that was a real problem, and I'm going to mention that here and talk about how we worked through that. The real problem that we had was for a period of time, it wasn't running. And when I said we had an outage where it didn't run, it was because the mice had made a nest in our air filter. And I had another video where I talked about a little way where you can just take some wire mesh and zip tie it onto that air filter, and you can keep the mice out of there. When that situation had happened, at first I didn't realize that was the problem, and so I ran it. And I have not had much history at all with mechanical things, so this is a lot of new learning to me. And I have my friend who works for Cummins had come over and helped me out. Another friend of mine who does a lot of work with engines came. Those guys, and we kind of took the exhaust off, vacuumed everything out, realized that we had a spark plug problem when it wouldn't start for all those times the carbon had built up on the spark plugs. So the spark plugs um, are very specific to it. I'm going to leave a link in the video description where you can get them off of Amazon. We had a time where they hadn't worked and I had to replace them. I was not able to get them locally. I went to 3 or 4 different auto stores looking for them, and they didn't carry them in stock because they are unique with that. So if you are going to get this, I would recommend that you get things to be able to do your oil change on there. The oil change is set up very nicely in the housing. There's a little hose that it has that comes down, and you can do it and keep it all nice and clean. It's also not that difficult to change the spark plugs, but I would recommend having some of those on hand. When we had that carbon buildup, I went through 4 spark plugs just to clean that out, and I have uh, the third and fourth one are in there now, and I have 2 more on hand in case with that. So having some oil, having the things for an oil change, having a backup air filter, and then having a 10 millimeter screw gun. You could do a wrench, but there's a lot of bolts that you have to take off when you do it, and it's just going to be so much faster if you have a screw gun when you're doing that. In relationship to the installation, if you're considering getting it, some things that we experienced with it, we bought it right from Cummins. I went and picked it up at their place, brought it here, unloaded it with my forklift. Then it sat here for a while, and we had our electricians who were doing the rest of our house do the installation with it. You have to be able to read the tech specs to get the automatic transfer switch wires lined up there. A lot of these guys have only done Generacs there. It's not super confusing, but it's also not super easy if you haven't read that. The other thing that I wish I had had when I did it is you can hook it up to the internet, and I have a cable run to it, but I have to actually splice the wire onto the end of it, because when we first put it in, I was a little concerned. The recommendation is if you're going to run that Ethernet cable in the same conduit as your power cable going to the generator, that you have a shielded Ethernet cable. The recommendation, my understanding is that you run that separately in there, but having that on hand for installation so you can get it connected, then you could run it from your app. I would really like to have had the app and be able to do all the monitoring from that. I have the Ethernet cable run to it. I just have to figure out how to actually make the ends of that thing to get it connected. So something to keep in mind. The final thing I want to do for you is just turn it on for you. You can listen to it. You can hear the volume level of it. And obviously, you're going to have some noise when you're running a generator. It is on the side of the house where our master bedroom is, so I hear it. The first time we had an all-night power outage, I didn't sleep great because I was just concerned. Is it running right? Is that what it's supposed to sound like? Is it going to turn off? But we've had multiple outages since then, and I sleep fine through it now. I don't have that same kind of initial uncertainty that I had with it. So you might like to hear it run, and I'll run that for you. Also, if you have any other questions about it or things that you'd like to know, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them for you. Again, I'm very new to this. Engines are not my confident point. I haven't had a lot of experience with it. But if you're going to have one of these things, what happens is you have to learn some of these things. It's a big benefit. It's a big cost savings to have that kind of knowledge and to be able to use it in that way. And that's really why I'm sharing this video with you, so you can have that knowledge and you can have that confidence and you can kind of learn from my experience with this. So let's go turn it on, and then we'll wrap it up, and thanks for watching. All right, so I've got the remote disabled right now, and I'm just going to try and give it a start up here. Let's see if we can get it running, and you can hear what it sounds like. So when your automatic is on, you have remote on and standby on, and you're good to go. So behind me, you see kind of our setup here, generator there, propane tank over there. It's at a lower elevation. I don't know if that affects it or not coming up. It shouldn't from the pressure standpoint. But you can be within 18 inches of the structure, which is a nice feature for that. So something to keep in mind. And again, hopefully you found this information useful. We're really glad to have it being on well water, having electric heat, having a generator. We buy meat, and we have freezers, multiple freezers full of meat. So it's a nice comfort to have this for these situations. All right, thanks for checking this one out. Hope to see you on enough future one.